Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm also very excited to be here and also to discuss more about these issues this afternoon. My task today, or the task that I was given, was to talk about interdisciplinary research, and I would like to bring you on a journey that for me started in the beginning of 2000 and where I started to work interdisciplinary, in particular on wildlife management, human-wildlife conflicts, which has then turned into many more subjects. But this is also a journey where we have tried to find ways of, or processes, where we can use interdisciplinary research and turn that into practical applications. So I will start by saying something very briefly about interdisciplinary research, and then I will give you an example of how we have developed this type of process, and also what that has brought us in terms of transformation. We'll see if you agree with me about that, but also the challenges that we have had along the way. So just something very briefly about interdisciplinary research for transformation. When we talk about interdisciplinary work, it's about genuinely integrating different perspectives, but also methods, and of course also share insights. And the transformative part is about the ambition. So where are we taking our research? What is the result going to contribute to? And we've heard about this earlier, about the need for fundamental shifts in systems, but it can also be shifts in processes or ways of thinking. And all of these are, of course, different or challenging to achieve depending on where you start from. Ways of thinking can be a little bit easier, in particular on a local level, but system change is, of course, something more challenging. So interdisciplinary research for transformation, it's a commitment, I should say, to using collaborative and knowledge-spanning research to drive substantial positive change. And of course, the main reason to this is what we've heard, the polycrisis or the triple planetary crisis, or whatever we call it, the urgent need to move from one state, not only from one state to another, but to actually achieve this type of change, and the sense of urgency behind this. And as I said, I've primarily worked with the biodiversity loss or biodiversity crisis, but also climate change. And these are, of course, interconnected, which also makes it challenging to dig into these questions and to handle these questions, because they might have also unintended consequences, as we heard Per say in his talk. But what we have then tried to develop in our research group is a kind of model or a kind of way to set up a project to be able to focus on transformation. And those include 4 key elements, and that is, of course, the interdisciplinary part or even transdisciplinary part, where we include diverse perspectives, we gather around a problem, an identified problem, and try to find as many perspectives on that as possible, and then also bring in different type of expertise related to that problem. And that involves both scientists but also stakeholders and right holders. And based on that, we need to develop some kind of methodological integration. Some call it theory of change, or some kind of platform that we can work on or work from. And then together with, often together with stakeholders, we co-create knowledge based on the studies that are done, but also often experiments. So we can actually test in practice how the solutions that we work with actually work. And based on that, we can also then give more advice or recommendations. And we also can see that the uptake of these ideas and so on are much faster if we have tested it and so on. And in particular, I would say in the, well, maybe that's because I know this field when it comes to human-wildlife conflict, is that many of the recommendations are never tested. They are often only case-based, and that also makes it challenging to actually recommend something. So I think that this part to actually do experiments is really important, and also evaluate it to be able to focus on transformation. So let's then follow me on this journey where we move to Tanzania. We fly down to Tanzania, to the cradle of mankind, where we have a fantastic landscape, a savanna landscape, and an area that is of high value to Tanzania, but where you also have a lot of visitors. Tourism is one of the main interest or main income in this area and in Tanzania, but where you also have a traditional landscape where you have indigenous people that have lived here for many, many years and have also shaped the landscape in this area. So it's a multiple use area, and where we have been working is, in particular, is the Ngorongoro Conservation Area. I'm sure that some of you already have been there, and if not, it's well worth visiting. It's part of the Greater Serengeti ecosystem, and the reason why it was instigated is because the Maasai population was expelled or translocated from the Serengeti National Park. And they were then promised to be able to stay in this area and continue their way of life, but sharing it with tourism and also, of course, conservation. And you could say that this type of multiple-use landscape is also highlighted now in the Global Biodiversity Framework as one way of trying to handle the loss of biodiversity, but also to identify areas that you could restore, but also then include in this 30% goal to actually protect these different type of areas. But as you also can understand, this is, given this multiple use situation, there's also a lot of conflicts. And for a long time, this area has been monitored by natural scientists, in particular focusing on lions. The Lion Project is one of the longest or most longitudinal project in the world. It's more than 50 years long. So they know a lot about the lions. They also know a lot about the conflicts. But despite this type of knowledge, the lion population decreased and decreased and decreased. And in 2011, I was invited by one of these projects to try to find out, so how can we actually deal with this situation? So how can we find alternative ways of managing this area and reduce the human-wildlife conflict in order to achieve the multiple-use goals that were set in this area? So what we did then, based on the procedure that we have developed, is that we started to, and also then inspired by a dear colleague in Kenya that has been working with the Maasai population in a program called the Lion Guardians. So we invited the Maasai in this area and asked them and discussed with them, so how could we actually bring back stewardship to this area? So how could we actually involve the Maasai population that are the experts, that are the inhabitants of this area, to actually protect it and being part of the conservation system? So instead of having scientists coming from abroad, or only scientists coming from abroad, to monitor the lion population, we educated the best lion killers in the area to become stewards, and educated them in reading and writing, but also handling GPS collars, for example, but also to handle conflicts in this area. So their role is both to monitor the lion population, but also to make sure that the conflicts between herders, the livestock, and the lions, that they are separated, and that we can, if there are incidents, that they also go there and handle the conflict in this area. And it was very successful. We have around 20 persons hired in this area that are distributed across the land in order to be part of the community, but also to take care of these type of conflicts that of course occur in this landscape. And they do a lot. They don't only monitor the lions, but they also help to find lost cattle, lost children. So they have become a really important part in the community. And of course, they are also then granted jobs. So this project that is called Copper Lion, or the NGO that was set up is called Copper Lion, has been very successful, but still conflicts occurred. Lions were killed in retaliation. So we then started to discuss, is there something else that we could do in order to handle this conflict? And one thing that we, of course, needed to handle was the loss of cattle. And this is, we arrived directly after a lion had attacked a cow, and helped the herders here to slaughter the cow so that they at least could eat the meat from the cow. But this is still a challenge, that they have to bear all the cost of having lions in the area. And a traditional way of handling this is to compensate for this type of loss. But as we know from other systems, that it works to some extent, but maybe not as we would like it to work. So what we then asked them was if we could test another type of program that is called Conservation Incentive Payment Program, CIP. And we first did a feasibility study to look into, so what does it actually mean? What would it entail in this system? And we had several workshops together with authorities, together with the Maasai population, together with the tourist organizations as well, since they are also a part of this landscape. And then together we decided to set up a pilot program to test in practice, and also to evaluate this program. And just to compare the differences between a compensation versus a conservation incentive payment program, is that you get compensation if your cow dies, and you get compensation even if the lion population goes down. But this is the incentive payment program is to actually try to switch the thinking here, that you get incentive payments only if the lion survives, and also if you have, of course, the livestock left. So this was, of course, a challenge to actually get the thinking going, but together with these villages, we set up all the rules and regulations. We decided the geographic scope together, the basis of earnings, the amount that they should get, the timing of disbursements, and also the penalties and so forth. So what would happen if they actually killed a lion? And also the administration and so forth. And there was three villages were involved in the setting up of in the feasibility study and the stakeholders and so on. And in the end, 2 decided to participate in this trial. And it started off a little bit that but we want to buy more livestock and so forth. But after a while, it changed. And the funding from having lions on their land primarily went, as you can see, to student support, to school desks, as you can see here in the bottom, but also to school food, for example. And they have also built up offices so that they can administrate different tasks that they have, water projects and so forth. So when we have been there and delivered these goods to these villages, it has always been also connected to this discussion about so where does this money come from? And it has been very clear, also based on our evaluation, that the awareness, in particular in these areas with the compensation program or the incentive payment program, but also in other areas, that the awareness of this program is very high, that the impact, in particular when it comes to the collective benefits, is very appreciated. That the trust is also about setting this up, because it has been built from the bottom up and so forth, is very high, and also the inclusion. But I think that the most important result from this program is that no lions were killed. So there was an immediate impact on the survival of the lions in this area, but also the awareness and on how to herd animals and so on. Of course, there are critiques. Some thought, about the penalties, that it was a bit unfair, that there was some funding restrictions, but that was done in accordance with the authorities, so we couldn't do much about that. There was an earning cap that weakened the link to, for example, between the program and the burden to share the landscape with the lion. But also, of course, this challenge that this goes to the community and not the individual. So the individual that actually has lost a cow is still bearing the cost, so to say, the burden of having a lion. Linking back then to the focus on transformation and the benefits that we can have from working interdisciplinary is, of course, that we can get a better understanding, a more comprehensive understanding of a problem. We can have these innovative solutions. We can have an enhanced impact. System change, maybe that's hard to say from a particular case study. What we will do next is to actually test this in other areas outside of this protected area. But what we can see in the case is that we definitely had capacity building. We had a lot of learning, a sense of justice, but also increased knowledge because they have also worked in schools and so forth on this issue. The challenges, I would say, is still, of course, that we have a lot of communication barriers, not only between scientists, but also between scientists and the local community, because of, the time framing of science and the demands on scientists, for example. People want to have results now. Scientists, we need to publish first before we can say something about that. So the time framing is difficult, but also methodological conflicts, what is actually valid in these type of projects. And of course also institutional barriers and the time and resources. We still often have to do this in less than 3 years, for example. Yeah. So what can we learn from this case? We could clearly see that this system is working based on the semi-experiment or the quasi-experiment that we did. Working all the way through the whole process. But the challenge in this situation is also that it's hard to only work on the local level because if you don't bring in politics, and I think referring back to what Per said and the turbulent times, we are, as scientists in this situation, some kind of honest broker maybe, trying to give an example of what can work in different type of situations. But if the politicians have decided on another solution, it's hard to achieve transformative change. Like in this case, where they are planning to evict 100,000 people from this area. So just to wrap up, this type of method to work intensively with your colleagues, but also together with stakeholders to co-create knowledge is definitely a way to achieve transformation, or to at least to focus on transformation. But the step from the results of science into politics, I think that's one of the most challenging part in how to achieve transformation. So with that, thank you.